This podcast is brought to you by Wise, the app for international people using money around the globe. With Wise, you can send, spend, and receive up to 40 currencies and save up to 55% compared to major banks. Plus, Wise won't add hidden fees to your transfer. Whether you're buying souvenirs with pesos in Puerto Vallarta or spending euros to tip your Colosseum tour guide, you know you're getting a fair exchange rate with no extra markups. Join the 15 million customers who choose Wise. Download the Wise app today or visit wise.com/US/compare to learn more. Terms and conditions apply.
Today on CityCast DC, we're talking about the government shutting down and what the city is going to do about it. We're talking about a rideshare service being shut down and why they're mad at the city about it. Plus a new music venue, and in a fourth segment, we'll talk about great DC challenges. And we really do not mean like balancing the budget. I'm here with Axios' Junaid Deal and my CityCast colleague Ash Durbin. Today is Friday, October 3rd. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC is talking about. Hey, Ash.
How's it going?
Good to see you, my friend. Hey, Junaid.
Hello. Good morning.
All right. Before we get started, we are at the very, very, very end of our membership campaign, and I really hope people join up as members. It's important to keeping CityCast going, and I think CityCast, in its way, is really important in DC. I think we have conversations about important things. We connect people to the city at a time when the media ecosystem is really, really, really in deep trouble. I think we're a place that's got a lot of energy and that is doing stuff that, in my experience at least, really connects with people.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking a lot about the idea of living in DC on purpose. And I think personally, in working for CityCast and in having lived in DC for most of my life, CityCast has really helped me find little niche things about DC, little cultural, political, just things about life in DC that I didn't know about before. And those, have been some of the reasons that I've loved to continue living in DC on purpose. So if you become a member, you help us keep doing that into the future.
We also have on October 14th, coming right up, a members only happy hour. These are some of my favorite events because people come to them. We talk about important things. We talk about stuff that's going on in our neighborhoods. We talk about our city. The listener community is such a cool bunch of people who have interesting thoughts about DC that do not always agree with mine. And yet I really, really enjoy these moments where we get to talk with them in a chill environment. It's like we're building a little back alley of our own here.
I know a lot of you are probably thinking you've heard us talk about membership a lot, but that also means you're listening a lot. So that probably means you should become a member and, support the podcast that you're listening to every day.
And today is your last chance to help us reach our goals during this campaign and get yourself a Neighbors Make DC tote bag. It's only $10 a month for you, and it is absolutely invaluable to us. So please sign up.
Just go to membership.citycast.fm. It's $10 a month or $100 a year.
All right, let's talk shutdown. So you cover City Hall in DC. You cover local government. It has not shut down. However, the federal government has, and that has huge, huge, huge impacts on DC's workers, ultimately on DC's tax revenue and the ability of our local government to function. What's the state of play inside the Bowser administration? How freaked out are people?
Well, the mayor says DC is still open to the public. So in past shutdowns, there was worry that DC would also be impacted, the local government services. But more recently, DC is able to keep pretty much close to 100% uninterrupted as possible. But I mean, if you're asking what does the mayor want, or what do people in City Hall in the Wilson building want? Well, they would really like with a Congress down the street to fix its impasse and open things back up, because this is a big problem for all the people who work for the government, obviously, and make up the economy. And we already know how much federal cuts are impacting the city. So this is just bad vibes on top of already a bad economic picture.
And potentially a lot of hands out for unemployment, if it's just a furlough and not the mass firing. And then there's this other thing of like, the Smithsonian and the National Gallery and monuments will close. And so if I'm, like a family from Buffalo that has planned a October getaway to see the sights of our nation's capital, that might be cause to cancel my trip, and with it, cancel all the money I was going to spend on hotels and restaurants and souvenirs.
Yeah, it's bad for tourism. It's already at a time when you have National Guards people. There's this air of sort of just, I don't know, instability, or just, it's not a ideal condition in DC right now to entice people to come here. And that this is just another reason why people might think, let's skip DC right now. Even maybe people in the suburbs, right? If you're coming into the city to visit museums or national monuments or things like that, had a reason to avoid the city, perhaps. These will come in phases, right? Like, I'm not sure when exactly the zoo or the museums will be impacted, but it will head in that direction if this shutdown takes longer to solve.
And the mayor has put out statements about how, the parks will be safe. Basically, she's trying to signal to tourists that you should still come. And in the past, there have been some DC employees who've cleaned up the parks and the mall and picked up the trash there because the feds aren't. But that is very different from actually having DC employees like open and operate the many Smithsonian museums.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's not gonna quite happen. But since so much of our land and weird pockets of it, like your neighborhood park could be National Park Service land, it might get mowed very infrequently as it is. It will not get mowed at all now.
People have been referring to this as like a weirdly low-key shutdown, by which I think there's a sense of like, given all the chaos of non-shutdown times, like how much different can it get? And that's in this day and age, that's probably not a good rhetorical question to ask. But Ash, does it feel like? I mean, how does it feel to you? Is the low-key thing a correct description?
Yeah, no, it's hard to say. I mean, it definitely kind of blends into the general chaos of the past couple months. I don't know. I mean, it has been, 7 years since the last one? 2018? And that one went on for kind of a while. Maybe it'll become more problematic the longer it goes on.
I mean, like the muscle memory of like bar specials and museum discounts, not for the Smithsonian, but for the actual paid private museums, has kicked in. Like federal workers can get discounted tickets to Ford's Theater.
Yes, and it also just like it feels like we've been through this more than we have, because there were so many near shutdowns in like the past couple of years. Like, and we had an interesting story in Axios, one of my colleagues, that some federal workers are saying, and not all of them, but some are like, well, bring it on, because it's been a really bad few months for them already in the federal workforce. If this is what it takes to maybe come out of this with some kind of a more stronger Congress against some of the cuts that the Trump administration is doing, if this means Congress will take any more initiative in terms of protecting their jobs, then they welcome it. But that's a tough gambit to make, obviously. But that kind of is just indicative of where a lot of these federal workers are, how low their morale is.
I was also going to say, isn't this like a week after that Brookings study, which I believe we're going to have an episode about soon, that said DC's economy was going downhill already? And that was just a week or a couple of weeks ago, correct?
And the city's chief financial officer released the regular revenue report, which is basically how much tax money has come in from various causes. The Bowser administration said, hey, this is surprisingly good news, because a lot of people had been thinking those revenue numbers would fall off a cliff, and that means that they wouldn't have money to spend on the things people care about. But a lot of the other stuff in there, like about the real estate market and stuff, was not, they sort of spun it as good news, but it seemed like there was a lot of frightening stuff in there.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yep. a lot of people I spoke to said that it was, on the surface, it looked better than what people feared. But if you really get into the details of what the CFO was saying, his prediction for a recession got worse. And if he was saying a mild recession, now it's a moderate recession is what he's predicting for the next 12 months in DC.
So, Junaid, I hate to ask the tacky political question, but you do cover the races for the nascent races for who's going to, if Bowser will be challenged, or people running for the city council, the DC council. How do you think, like, an environment of a lot of people out of work, the city not having as much money as it thought it would have and needing to cut popular things, how will that affect the dynamics of an election in DC, where you've already got the sort of built-in divide between the more centrist people on the council around the mayor and a more lefty bloc?
Let's take a look at like the mayor's race. I mean, first of all, you need a race. Like right now, the mayor's probably going to run for re-election, but we don't really have a solid challenger making any moves in that direction. So you need someone to take advantage of those conditions. But sure, I mean, I think if a challenger comes up and says, "Look, it's the economic conditions are obvious. Mayor Bowser has been a 3-term mayor. Do we really want to go down this same path?" And it can be sort of unfair or whatever you want to call it, but incumbents take the blame for the conditions that exist when they're in office. And a lot of this was not the mayor's fault. You know, the federal government, Trump administration cutting jobs and gutting the main employer of the city. But the opportunity nonetheless exists for a challenger to make that case and present a different way forward. And the mayor will say her part and say that she did her best to prevent worse from the Trump administration and protect the city as much as she could. But again, incumbents, especially ones who are there for a long time, if she wants a 4th term, she's going to have a lot to defend herself on, and the city is in not a great shape right now.
Do you have a sense from the people you cover of what they're thinking about, say there is a real collapse in how much money they're taking in, money that would be spent on, schools and cops and roads and housing assistance and what have you. What gets hit in the event of sort of calamity?
Whenever we have that moment of like, okay, the city has to cut $1 billion over 4 years or 5 years, the mayor always comes out with some kind of budget that, yes, social programs, they're getting cut, but a lot of the money they have like budget tricks that they can use almost. So it always seems like the cuts are really being delayed in like 3-4 years time, on paper at least. And so they've been able to avoid the most painful cuts. And I don't actually know what they're going to have to cut in the end of the day when this next fiscal year, the next 12 months, are looking particularly bad for the economic outlook. I think the core services she wants to protect are schools, police, public safety, things like health care for low-income people. But I mean, there's a lot in government beyond that, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough, and I don't. There hasn't been war planning around what will have to go. I think they still think the economic doomsday projections are overly conservative, and they hope that the worst of this won't come. Which, if that's the case, then it's not a bad place to be, because the chief financial officer says there will be a moderate recession. Turns out there isn't. Well, then you don't have to make as many cuts.
Don't miss Folger Theater's Julius X, playing September 23rd through October 26th at the Folger Shakespeare Library. This bold new play by Peabody Award-winning journalist Al Letson remixes Shakespeare's Julius Caesar with the history of Malcolm X, sampling lyrically and historically from Shakespeare's text, famous speeches by civil rights leaders, and Letson's own verse. Directed by DC-based theater artist Nicole Brewer and starring renowned Shakespearean actor Brandon Carter, Julius X explores the historical weight of Malcolm X's last days and the cyclical nature of ambition, power, and revolution. Tickets start at $20 and can be purchased online at folger.edu or by calling the box office at 202-544-7077, Tuesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Get yours today. When the Library of Congress says it's a library for you, they really mean it. The library hosts year-round free events to share its collections with the public, both in person and online. Visit loc.gov/events to elevate your happy hour every Thursday with eclectic entertainment and cocktails during Live at the Library. Bring kids for hands-on activities at family days. Find daytime workshops for lifelong learners in Afternoons with the Library. Enjoy world-class live music in their Concerts from the Library of Congress series and more. Whatever your age or interest, there's a program to connect you to the Library of Congress collections. Plan your next visit at loc.gov/events. That's loc.gov/events. Hey, if your name is Andrew J., Timothy Q., Catherine S., Kelsey M., Raymond K., Annette T., Lauren A., Bianca M.H., Keith M., India B., Jennifer O., Ilana N., Enrique E., Kirsten N., Hannah P., Alejandro A., Kathy H., Jordan J., Jonathan Z., Stephen O., or Che M. Thank you! That means you've signed up in the past 24 hours to be a CityCast DC neighbor. We really, really, really appreciate it. And if you're not one of these people, we hope you'll sign up to be a member too.
And this is the end of the campaign, so we really need you to do it ASAP. We keep getting these great messages about why people joined. Raymond K. said he joined because it's the perfect mix of high-quality local journalism and info on all the fun stuff going on. I really appreciate what y'all do to make the city feel more intimate and approachable.
We also heard from Bianca, who said she joined because she loves our emails, which frankly hurts my feelings because she should join because she loves the beautiful sound of my voice. She said, I really enjoy reading your emails. I'm super busy. I get tons of emails, but you guys make your materials interesting and usually short and straight to the point about what's going on in the community. The info is thorough, and that takes a lot of hard work and dedication on your end, which I know to be true, even though I don't write the emails. Go Kayla.
Go Kayla. I know a lot of you listening have the same sentiment, but have not become members. Again, this is the end of the campaign, and you can join all these folks and become a neighbor today for just $10 a month or $100 a year by going to membership.citycast.fm.
Yeah, that's membership.citycast.fm. Wait, so I was obsessed this week with a different story, not the government shutdown, but the story of Empower, the ride-sharing app. We did an episode on this quite a long time ago, but Empower is a platform that, according to them, allows drivers as individuals to solicit customers as individuals, and it just connects them. The district and many other local governments have wanted to regulate them the same way you would regulate Uber or Lyft or taxis in the name of public safety, safe roads, safe passengers, etc. They have resisted this. There was long legal skirmishes, and that culminated this week in a judge threatening to put the head of Empower in jail if he continued to not follow the district's regulations. He cried uncle, and Empower is pulling out of DC. They say it's going to take him a little while because it's, they say, hard to turn it off in just one jurisdiction. He left with a tweet, advertisement on social media, aimed at Bowser, basically accusing her of being in the tank for some of these incumbent rideshare companies, tagging the New York Post and a Trump Justice Department official in the ad, or in the link to the ad. So that's, I think they're trying to bring some politics of that. But this struck me as a sort of quiet victory for regulation.
Yeah, absolutely. The CEO, Josh Shear, who founded Empower, I talked to him, I think it was a year ago now, and I was sitting in his very ragtag McLean office. And at the time, he had $100 million in fines from DC government regulators. there was a lawsuit from the DC Attorney General, and this was moving through the courts still. And he was just totally unfazed. He just sat there and said, "Those fines don't matter. They want to settle for less, and our drivers make more money using our platform, and riders get cheaper fares." And he was just totally uh, uh, like nonchalant about it until finally he was threatened with jail time, and they backed down and he said, "We're gonna get this out of DC." But what he's saying in court is a little different than what he's saying publicly. Like you just read out, he looks like he kind of wants to keep fighting this.
I found it all so like confusing, and just like I started scouring the internet for like what people who ride with Empower thought about it and what drivers who drove with Empower thought about it. And on both levels, I saw like, you know, never use Empower. My driver was a freak. He obviously wasn't background checked, whatever. And then a bunch of people being like, it's always cheaper. This is the best. And then a bunch of drivers being like, you have to switch from Uber to do this. You'll make way more money. And then a bunch of people saying, you know, because the drivers pay a monthly subscription fee to use it, that it ends up not being that different at all from Uber or Lyft.
But the principle of the matter, as far as like the city government goes and sort of progressive critics go, is that a municipality, a government of any sort, has a right to put in regulations designed to keep its roads safe from unsafe conveyances and its citizens safe, and that companies, whether they're good companies or bad companies or provide a economical service or not, need to follow those rules. Like let's assume there's probably some freaks who are drivers and probably some awesome people who are like making more money than they would with Uber or Lyft, but it's not really about that. You know, it's this sort of like can a tech platform define you out of having to like follow rules that everyone else has to follow?
Yeah, their argument was if you buy it, DC didn't buy it. Was they're an Expedia like platform that where they're not like Uber, they're trying to out Uber. They're like Expedia, where you have this website of businesses where you can book a hotel. Their platform is a list of drivers who advertise their services, where you can book them and then talk with them about rates and whatever to hire their vehicle, their taxi. But DC did not buy that, and they were like, you got to go through all the things that Uber and taxis have to go through and register, and they were not doing that for several years and still aren't.
So there was a story also this week in our friends at the Business Journal about Amazon road testing its autonomous vehicles in the district. The Meta autonomous vehicles also being road tested, and it made me think like all of this like fighting about like regulations for drivers is maybe like yesterday's battle, and because in a few years these companies would prefer to handle that by having no drivers, and I'm told that's why some of the incumbent rideshare firms were like basically like happy to play ball in California on like union stuff with their drivers, because in their thinking, like drivers are just a temporary condition.
That's interesting. Yeah, they're coming fast. Autonomous vehicles.
Have you seen them around?
I have. I've seen some of the test vehicles,
which have drivers, just to be clear.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the Amazon ones, but I've seen some other companies.
Wait, Junaid, would this require changes to the law in the District of Columbia?
I think there's either a law now or they're trying to get it through that would make it easier to test these autonomous vehicles without any human inside of them, I believe. And I think that is smooth sailing through the council.
And in its like we're mad ad, Empower accused the mayor of being in the tank for her buddies in the industry. Can you like just sketch out like what are the politics of this? Like, is there any discernible divide within the local government about who thinks what on this constellation of things?
I think just generally, I don't know if there's anything unique here for DC, but you have the incumbents, Uber and Lyft, and I guess they wouldn't want another competitor who doesn't have to adhere to the same regulations. And that's been Empower's argument that they're getting lobbied on all sides by the incumbents, Uber and Lyft, to get rid of Empower and not let them operate. I mean, I'm sure that's happening. It makes total sense. I don't know. I haven't looked into the lobbying records of Uber and Lyft. At the same time, Josh Sear, the CEO of Empower, has made no friends on the council, and he's actively made enemies on the council. Councilmember Brianne Nadeau was very upset with him and how he like flooded one council hearing, or he tried to enlist 1,000 people to testify against Nadeau's investigation into the app like last year. And so he's not really made friends on the council either. And obviously he has some big companies who are fully incentivized to keep him out as well.
So if by his standards, could I like set up something that looked just like a restaurant, but actually was based on a platform where individual eaters make deals with individual cooks for dishes, and therefore get around like food safety regulations?
Right. That was the nut of it. I kept trying to press him on, well, you kind of look like a taxi. And like, what's the recourse if something bad does happen? And I think he would say things like, well, we do have insurance and we do have this. Oh, so you are like a taxi then, and you do take some responsibility for what happens on these rides. And so that's exactly why I think DC wasn't buying the argument that they're just this like yellow pages for plumbers or something. Like, they're not, I guess. But I think he's going to keep fighting. I think they're active in other cities, and last year he wanted to expand to more cities, and maybe the people he's tagging on Twitter are going to come in to help him. Who knows?
Hey, Bridget Todd here, co-host of CityCast DC. At CityCast DC, our mission is simple. We strive to make our listeners more engaged neighbors because we believe that better neighbors make better cities. Every day, we bring you the local stories, conversations, and tips that help you feel more connected to DC and the people and places that make it feel like home. And when you become a CityCast DC neighbor, you're investing in that mission. Your support allows us to keep covering those local issues that matter most to our communities and highlight the stories that make this city shine. Plus, CityCast DC neighbors get great benefits like ad-free podcast episodes, a weekly email rounding up a full week's worth of curated local events, invitations to members-only events, and more. Sign up today for $10 a month or $100 a year at membership.citycast.fm. Join the neighborhood. That's membership.citycast.fm, and thank you.
Hey, Ash, you wrote a nice piece on the CityCast site and in the newsletter about a new music venue rising on the ashes of the old Rock and Roll Hotel. Tell us about it. Why does this matter?
Yeah. So Rock and Roll Hotel, for those who don't know, opened in 2006, closed during COVID in 2020. I think for a lot of people of my generation and maybe, people in their 30s, this was like the first place where I went to something that felt like a real rock show. And, it closed in COVID. That was sad. It's like a small venue, 2 floors, but like big enough where national and even international acts would come through. And it's been closed since 2020 until now. It opens actually today as a new venue called Transmission, which is organized by a bunch of, local music kids, essentially. Who were throwing shows for the past couple years in Chinatown above a Chinese restaurant called Chinatown Garden. And those shows were awesome. The sound was great. It was a lot of fringe music, like hardcore and techno and freaky stuff. But now it's going to, become more of a quote unquote real venue and have in a wider range of music and acts. And they told me they wanted to do comedy and free DJing classes and nonprofit fundraisers. It's a really nice thing to have something cool opening when it seems like a lot of things are, including the federal government, shutting down.
Where is it?
That's also interesting is that it's on the H Street corridor. So it's right next to Makedo and Pie Shop, for those who are familiar with the area.
That's H and what?
Right about on the corner of H and 14th. H Street has been through, ups and downs over the years. In 2023, there was all this talk about businesses closing, talks about crimes and stuff. We recently did an episode on H Street that got a lot of love. I'm interested to see how it goes. Like I said, it opens today. It's a 2-day festival, so Friday and Saturday. There's a bunch of local bands and DJs. And the other thing with this is they kind of had a mad rush to get everything prepared and get everything up to standard before they opened. So they asked for community help. So over the past couple of weeks, just, people who liked what they were doing at the old space just came through to literally, the bar and paint the walls and do murals. And they got it up to standard and passed their inspection and they're good to open. So super exciting.
Will you, just for people who don't get out that much, put this in the sort of hierarchy of venues in DC in terms of its size, location, vibe, etc.
I would say back in the day when it was Rock and Roll Hotel, just the space itself is right below Black Cat. It's a smaller capacity than Black Cat. There is 2 floors. It's smaller than the Atlantis. The acts that are just one below Black Cat, or maybe people who want a more intimate thing, will go there. And like I said before, they were doing a lot of fringe stuff at the old space, but I think it's going to be a more, classic music venue with a wide range of stuff from now on. Janae, did you ever go to the Rock and Roll Hotel when you were growing up?
I did not. No, I'm enthused by your description of it, though.
Mike, I wanted to ask because hopefully this one stays open for a long time, but music venues open and close a lot. Is there any music venue from the past that you miss or you would want to come back in some way?
I mean, if you are my age and you are from DC, you're supposed to say DC Space because it was cheap and it was really cool and it felt very community in that people who attended bar also playing in bands. But I also think it was sort of by objective standards of, sound and sightlines, probably, not so great. That sound and sightlines are not the only thing or probably even the main thing that you're looking for if you're, if you're into independent music and particularly if you're young. But it was at 7th and E, and in those days, there was nothing around there really. A lot of wig stores, and let's say you were borrowing your parents' Plymouth Caravan, you could probably park right on the street nearby without any trouble. It's a very different time. But what you wrote about and what you've described here, that seems like a much more ambitious, quote unquote, professional setup.
The thing they really wanted to emphasize to me was a venue by DC DIY for DC DIY, which makes it sound kind of like what you were saying, where it's maybe the audio quality isn't as high. But even at the last venue, like I said, above a Chinese restaurant, every time I went there, the sound was impeccable, if extremely loud, but sounded great. And also, they would bring in artists to do amazing projections and lights and videos on the walls. It's that same DIY ethos, but I guess they're just really good at it and it sounds great and looks great.
All right, so normally only paid subscribers get a bonus 4th roundup chat. Today, it's about challenges you can do around DC. We're going to go back to that next week. So if you want to be sure you always get the full episode on Fridays, become a member. Head to membership.citycast.fm and sign up. It's only $10 a month. And members get ad-free listening, exclusive members events, and an extra events newsletter every week. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. All right, so Janae, your outlet, Axios DC, had a
fun piece this week by a friend of CityCast, Amy Montgomery, about challenges you can do in DC. Like there's the famous 50-state ride where people take a bike ride where they hit every state avenue in the district. Did you have any favorites on that list, or is there anything I should do?
You should do some of these metro ones. We had a lot of readers write in about one of them was called a metro crawl, where a group of friends, they take the metro to the end of a line, have a drink at the nearest bar, get back on the train, and repeat that at all the stops until they make it back to downtown DC. One of our readers says they've done 11 crawls and hit 78 stations so far.
Is there a bar near every station?
Well, just to paint the picture, it's like taking over the TGI Fridays in Herndon, walking into the airport for a drink at Dulles, or having morning beers with regulars at the Stained Glass Pub in Glenmont. He wrote Taxios.
Sounds like a nightmare, dude.
Sounds like it.
Or like people got a lot of time on their hands, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for it. When I was at Washingtonian, we once sent a writer to walk the Beltway, to walk all 63 miles of the Beltway. It took a few days, but it can be done. Why would you do it? That's a highly different question. People suggested having a tri-jurisdiction day, which is breakfast in D.C., lunch in Maryland, and dinner in Virginia.
I really like that one. That's cool.
They suggested biking to every D.C. Public Library location, or crossing every Potomac Bridge.
I love the one of the guy who went around all the boundary stones, but I would like to go kind of like straight through the middle of DC, through like South Stone to North Stone or something. I think that would be slightly more interesting than like going around the perimeter.
One Capital Bike Share one. I feel like there should be a side quest where you have to take a Capital Bike Share bike home when it's a blizzard or something, like maybe 6 inches of snow on the ground. Not
So
to like,
dangerous.
again, maybe don't. This is not a recommendation, but I've definitely done it on the terrible snow day once.
Just for the record, you also had, the people also sent in suggestions like hit up every single DMV Tate in one day.
Mm-hmm.
A little less reckless and dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
A little easier than hitting up every Starbucks, although, 19 Starbucks in the DMV closed this week. So that would be easier than it would have been before.
That's true.
I'm always thinking too, like whatever neighborhood I'm in, I always kind of have the goal in my brain to go to every single restaurant at my neighborhood, and like including takeouts and stuff. I don't think I've ever really completed it because I've like mostly lived around, Silver Spring, and there's a lot of restaurants, and then you start getting the stuff that you actually want and that you're used to. But I do think that would be a fun goal to try it, everything in your neighborhood.
There's things like so a lot of Redditors had their ideas that we included. Eat at each local Jose Andres restaurant in a month, or in the spring or summer, try to make a DC United Caps, Nats, and Wizards game in 24 hours, which is just enough to make my head hurt.
That must be tough, man. I think that the Metro seems to be the target of a lot of like, can I do this challenges? And maybe it's just because people spend their time on the train staring at the map, and so they think about ways of conquering it.
I think so. That Metro is a beloved institution. But no, I did like the tri-jurisdiction there. That's kind of a doable one. Breakfast in DC, Metro out to Maryland for lunch, Metro to Virginia for dinner.
I think that would be the way to do it too. Like breakfast in DC feels like the right one. I feel like you'd want to do some like K barbecue in Virginia for dinner, and then lunch in Maryland.
Good stuff. Yeah,
that's probably the way I would do it.
I mean, why stop there? Like what about every single county and quadrant?
Go out to West Virginia.
I like it, man.
Go do the entire metro area.
But these challenges, I think, are all things that you can do even amidst a shutdown. So I think you guys should check out the story and call us and let us know what you did. Junaid, thank you for being here.
Hey, always fun to join. Thank you.
Ash, good to see you, my friend.
Thanks, Mike.
And thank you to all of our new and old CityCast DC neighbors who've joined over the last 2 weeks. I said it before, but I'll say it again. You are the best, and we thank you so much for supporting this work. If you want the tote, you got to join today. So head to membership.citycast.fm. And that's all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Annie Reese, Julia Karen, and Ash Durbin. Newsletter editors Kayla Cote-Stemmerman, Ash Durbin, Julia Karen, and Natalia Aldana wrote our fabulous newsletter, Hey DC, this week. And our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan, with additional music from Lucid Tides, Rosedale, and Philip Ayers, via Triple Scoop Music, via Getty Images. If you enjoyed the show, why don't you come up with your own CityCast DC challenge, where you listen to one of our episodes at every single metro station, and then justify your existence. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.